as usual, the lineup is prayer of gratitude, description of what is energy healing in a nutshell, a review of yesterday, and then diving into today's session. Thank you, everyone, for being with me. I'm really excited about today. I've got a bunch of questions to address and some yummy tidbits to share with everybody. So, thank you to the source of creation for being everything, for being this healing session. Thank you for being all of us and all of our ancestors and the bridge or connection between the absolute and the relative. Thank you to that, to the Holy Tradition. Thank you for the opportunity today through all of us as we unify our intention to promote the deepest possible understanding, the most profound healing work, and the expansion of everybody's capacity to perform energy healing for yourself and for the world. We want to go right to the core of today's topic and address that in the highest and best possible way. And bless everyone. Thank you. All right. So today's session is called Mastering the Path from Symptom to Full Health through energy healing, essentially. And energy healing, in a nutshell, is the process of using consciousness, the fact that consciousness naturally folds in on its own nature. Consciousness is naturally self-referral. So what we're doing is we're leveraging the nature of consciousness to fold in on itself in order to promote transformations at very deep levels of the field of expression. And when the deep level of the field of expression organizes itself in a really orderly manner, and there are no like dark areas or blockages or discordant feelings or difficulties, then the manifestation of consciousness as it moves up to the surface of life and becomes the physical human form, or becomes aspects of our lives, right? Like our financial state, or our relationships with other people, or our ability to live and serve society in the highest and best possible way, that kind of thing. All that organizes itself out as well, because all that is a reflection of what's going on inside. So we're getting in and dealing with the situation at its core, and we're leveraging the nature of consciousness to fold in on its own nature. And it's really pretty easy, and it's something everybody can do, because we all have attention. And attention is essentially pure being, pure source energy directed. That's what our attention is. And everybody does that. Everybody can do that. Like from day one, tiny infants can direct their attention. They figure out, oh, that one's my mom, that one's not, like they know. So it's something that's inherent in the nature of the human makeup, is to be able to focus attention. And so everybody can do this. We can do this. But what I wanted to do in today's session was break that process down a little bit so that we have a chance to really understand clearly how to focus attention in the best possible way to get the precise effects that each person wants. All right. So that's mastering the path, right? The path, the inward and the outward path, essentially. Sometimes referring to that as the divine dialogue, but we usually start with a symptom, with something that's not quite right on the surface, and we have to follow that. We kind of analyze what's going on with it. That's one of the tools of energy healing, is inference, right? You can look at that and you can infer from the part of the body that's suffering, or the part of the life that's having a trouble, and from that start to get multiple perspectives on that particular point. So this is like the review of yesterday. So one of the things we talked about was the principle of getting multiple perspectives on a particular problem, because it's one thing to say, oh, my scapula hurts, And I don't know why, so I'm going to go to a doctor, and maybe the doctor will give me another perspective. It's always good to get another perspective, even from Western medicine. That's good too. That's good. But getting the perspective from the level of consciousness provides you with the essential tools to actually address the underlying cause of the dysfunction. So inference is one tool. Another tool is to direct awareness back to the source of creation. And I would say all of energy healing rests on that tool. Of all the tools you will ever own in your life, that's probably the most valuable, essential tool you will ever have with regards to leveraging or utilizing the potential of consciousness. Being able to fold it back into the source of creation. Now, that happens naturally. If anybody out there feels like, well, I don't know how to fold my consciousness into the source of creation is really abstract, and how do I even go about that? The answer is, we all experience it. Anybody who sleeps, and that's pretty much everybody, in that floaty place, remember, you're falling asleep, and right before you fall asleep, there's that floaty place. That experience is the source of thought. That's the source. That's source energy. That's the foundation. So we all do it. If for any reason you feel like, well, sometimes I think I have that experience, but I'm not sure, and how can I have it more consistently? I strongly recommend meditation. I strongly recommend it because meditation is a consistent way of accessing that. And not all meditations are the same. So just saying that if you have a meditation that is specifically designed to allow the mind to transcend the field of thought and get to the source of thought, that's the one you want to use. And I'm not allowed on these live webinars to mention any names, but it's out there, and I suggest you check it out because that's a very good way to attain consistent access to the most important tool of energy healing, which is the ability to move awareness from the surface of life, where the symptom and the pain and the discomfort is, right down into the source of thought area. And source of thought, source of everything in creation, has all the resources necessary to build everything back up again. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we organize those resources today. And yesterday, part of the review from yesterday is this beautiful woman who's in Holland sent me an email, and she asked the question, well, what are some kind of really concrete, like step-by-step type of technologies that we can use, that we can employ to create really nice specific effects for transforming that underlying imbalance and giving rise to some concrete positive effects on the surface? And I really enjoyed that question. It came to me about like a week and a half ago, something like that. And since then, they were just popping all week, new step-by-step algorithms for using consciousness to heal the body. So I shared some of those last night, and I'll share some more today. But let's see, we're still reviewing from yesterday. Was there anything else? There was a nice healing for the brain at the end. Thank you for that question from California. We mostly focused on the pathway from the symptom itself, and then how do we determine, based on the symptom, what's the underlying problem? And one of the points that came out, and again, that came out in a question, there were a lot of questions that came in this week, beautiful, grateful, was that, is there a way to really cut to the chase without getting lost and caught in the myriad of influences that could be behind any given problem? And definitely in the question, the answer arose. And what this lady said was, could it be that there's a lack of connection to divinity that's responsible for that? And I would say in most cases, there's a lack of feeling connected or integrated with one's divine nature that is an essential component in the imbalance. And that state of functioning, oh yes, with the blessings of the planetary influences at the moment, we're doing some deep mining. And it's interesting that that particular imbalance, that sense of like, well, the divine is somewhere out there, very abstract, or source of thought is somewhere, but I'm not sure how to reach it, kind of like that. And then I'm here and I'm separate from that. That has built up in over centuries. It's built up in our DNA through through ancestral beliefs, and it's built up for us. It's also built up, there are layers of it from centuries past when we were unable to, I would say, express our full divine potential in a complete and thorough way. And even now, there are probably still a few spots, there are a few areas where divine being isn't like fully embodied. And so that building up, when things like imbalances like that build up in layers and layers and layers, they become very stable in that building process. So we're in a very fortunate position right now because we have this very fascinating combination of planetary influences where Saturn and Ketu are they're in 100% affliction right now, sitting on top of each other. And so, for months we saw this coming, right? And I'm like shaking in my shoes, I'm thinking, oh, Saturn and Ketu, they're going to be on top of each other. Oh, knows. But then it came. And what I realized these are the miners. These are the deep, deep divers for gems and pearls in the most fine recesses, the most fine levels of consciousness. These two planets combined allow us to pull out everything that's really, really, really deep. It's a rare and wonderful opportunity. The Jyotishis in the audience probably know when this will happen again, but I think it's something like every 58 years or 53 years or something. So it's not going to happen again for a while. This is our opportunity to utilize the environmental influence that allows us to go really, really deep and not get distracted by superficialities. That's one of the things about Ketu, is Ketu doesn't let you get too caught in the relative. Ketu's kind of one-pointed on spiritual orientation, and Saturn is really deep, and Saturn is also really consistent, right? Like to build up over the long period of time, layer after layer after layer like that. So the gems and pearls that are down there were also built up layer after layer. And the stresses, the imbalances, like the belief that God is up there and I'm down here and never the twain shall meet, save for the suffering of a man 2,000 years ago, or however we want to slice that. That belief also built up in layers and layers and layers. So many webinars we've gone in and we've addressed that belief, and many remote healing sessions we go in and address that belief and we peel it off layer by layer. But now's the time where the seed of it can be identified precisely. And when I say the seed of it, and this is me leveraging the incredible potential of our healing collective, right? Because when we're together as a collective, we're all seeing it from our unique perspectives, and it broadens the comprehension vastly. So when I go in and I say we can go to the seed of it, to the seed of that separation element, what I'm seeing is the nature of the mother creation, kind of setting up, or the creator setting up the manifestation process, and that in that setup, there are natural divisions. There's like first a 3-in-1 division, for example. And that's 3 are stable and 1 is wholeness. And so when 1 divides, its first division, it divides into a stable form. Knower, known, and process of knowing, all of them being knowingness, right? Knowingness, knowing itself as knowingness. Stable, it's stable, it's stable. And it is really just one thing. So that's the first division. So there are divisions, but the art is for divinity to be fully 100% as wholeness embodied at each point of the dividing process. So in energy healing, one of the things we're looking at is how that wholeness of creation, and this is for today's session, right? How that wholeness of creation structures itself to come out to the surface without losing wholeness at every single point, because the more the relative manifests from the unmanifest, the more divisions are evident. And so in the dividing process, we need to somehow be able to maintain divinity. We need to maintain wholeness in the dividing process. So the reason there's a symptom is because something in the body manifested up to the material level, and it somehow lost the connection with the divinity in the process. Now it's crying and it's saying, divinity is ready to fill in this spot. It's ready to be in this space. And so we need to break down a bit at the surface level, and then we're going to rebuild it, but we're going to keep divinity integrated all the way up. You guys are amazing. So the healing that we ended with yesterday for the brain integrated Shruti. Shruti is the hum of the universe, the sound of the creation wrapped into one, into the parts of the brain that are designed to process that information in order to create a consistent connection with Shruti. And that causes the brain to create more neural connections. So it happens in the brain, but it happens through all the senses, of course. So the taste of soma is that essential, eternal source manifestation in the mouth and in the digestion, in the whole digestive system can taste soma. And the lights, the fine perception, the sparkling golden threads of creation everywhere, and those points where even the gross material eyes see the lights. They see those little blue and purple and yellow and different lights of creation flashing, or see the prana in the air, the little threads. They look like little wormies that kind of like they come out into, they're not there, and then they're there, and then they're not there again. They go like that, right? You've seen those. If you look up in the sky, and oh look, lots of raised hands on from the field of our collective. More raised hands. Oh boy, yeah, it's great. So that is the transcendent. That is the source of creation. I keep closing the raised hands box, and it keeps opening with more raised hands. I love you guys. So okay. So our senses of perception have a limited scope, and so they process that infinite, unbounded aspect, that source of creation aspect, each in their own kind of unique range and way. But I would like to just slightly revisit something from a few seconds ago, and that is the idea that every time wholeness diversifies a little bit more, every time it divides a little bit, that there is an opportunity for divinity to become more integrated at each point of the manifesting process, and that somehow over the long course of human experience, in those points of transition where the one breaks into three, and where the three becomes five, and the many, it becomes many, that at each one of those breakings there's also this opportunity for a little bit of, it's like illusion, the illusion that I'm not divine, I'm not divinity, for that to creep in. And when I look at that in our beautiful, yummy group of full awareness, what I see is that division, there's a little bit of individual ego. There's a little bit of kind of like self-identifying itself as separate. That is the illusion that can creep in at that spot. So, okay, so I'm asking our deep minor planets, our deep miners into the field of consciousness. what can be done? What can we do as a collective to support everybody in this healing session, to everyone's consciousness, which is constantly folding in on its own nature, as it comes out, to somehow disallow that particular function to creep in? Is there a way? Is there a way? Is there a way? And the answer that's coming back to me is, it's partly the fact that we have individuality that adds a level of richness to the divine experience of creation. Okay, so the individuality is necessary. Okay, so how can the individuality maintain its integrity as individuality? And I don't know the answer to this question. I'm just asking, I'm asking you guys. It's okay, because I know the answers come. But anyway, how can the individuality maintain what is required of it as an expression of individuality, and at the same time be fully integrated with the divine is also fully integrated there? Okay, so the answer coming back is that it ties in a little bit to the work we did yesterday with the body and the body elemental. So for those who were with me yesterday, we'll just do a little review of that quickly. And that is that there's the physical body that's designed to last a certain set amount of time. And everybody's body has its own sort of karmic package that supports it lasting for a certain amount of time. But then there's also the body elemental, which is the, you could say, the cosmic eternal intelligence of the physical body, which is responsible for maintenance, purification, growth, healing, of course. And that aspect of the body's intelligence is like a very fine, we could say, you've got the body, and then there's the etheric body, and then from the etheric body, there's a continuum into the body elemental, essentially. The body elemental, the relationship, that model of that relationship between the body and the body elemental, extremely intimate relationship, is a model. It's a great model. Our body's modeling for us the relationship between the indweller of the body, the individual, as they think of themselves as a unique individual in creation, and the eternal value of their own nature, which is that divinity as there's a path. It's the divinity as it's lined up to be completely, fully, 100% integrated, living your full potential in this lifetime you. I'm not sure I described that very well, but I hope it kind of made sense. Yeah, some people are getting it. Bless you, bless you. Thank you for being with me on that. It's partly, okay, I'm looking at it. It looks like we need a healing for the gut area. And the reason is that the senses of we're so used to the layers and layers. We're so accustomed for generations and from the past of the story of the soul to lean on those senses of perception. And the senses of perception are so limited. And so what we need to do is we need to open up in our physiologies the capacity to access the less limited potential for integrated understanding of the entire field of creation, that source of creation in every single point of the division, as the oneness divides into many. At every single point, we need like you could say like a sensory upgrade, essentially, that allows us to experience directly. And all that direct experience, that starts here in the gut area. Because the cord of light, right? So I'm checking as I'm saying, I'm checking everybody's cords of light. The cord of light, which connects to divinity out the top of the crown of the head, but it anchors to this core of Mother Earth down at the base, all the way into the core of Mother Earth, and Mother Earth with her cords to the sun and the stars and to the center of the galaxy, and then to the center sun, and so like that. So there's a big that's like the diversified side of the spectrum of our cord of light. And the unified side of the spectrum of the cord of light is out the crown of the head. Okay, so This is very interesting. The body elemental also has a cord of light. And as I mentioned in the last webinar, it's like a big shaft of light that we're like inside that shaft of light. And it's our resonating space for all of our light medicines and all of the forms, that healing forms that are created by the being. This shaft of the cord of light that's in our human physiology it coordinates, there's a coordination with the body elemental. Looks like a kind of sacred geometrical form. Looks like a matrix, but more like a matrix that's on the move. You know, if you have a mandala and it's just like a kind of a wholeness, any kind of circle is like a wholeness in itself. But if you put energy through it, what happens is it stretches out like that and becomes a cord, right? So there's this, I'm seeing it's unfolding for me visually right now. And so I just describe what I see as this, as our cord of light kind of opens out into the creation. It opens out in a Dumru shapes. Dumru shapes are kind of like vortexes. You know, it's like it's big and then it collapses down to zero and then it opens back up like that. It spins. Yes, thank you. It spins. Exactly. So, because when the force, because it's wholeness like that, foldings, consciousness folding in on itself like that. But when you put some punch behind it, it goes like this, right? So this, in the cord, our cord, and also the cord of the body elemental, at the same time are a little bit like, they have a fractaline relationship. So, you know, in a fractal, you've got an overall shape, like what is that turtle? The turtle of the Mandelbrot, right? You've got the basic turtle shape, and then you've got inside littler turtles and inside littler turtles like that. So this cord of light that runs through our body is like a littler turtle inside the turtle of the body elemental, or inside the cord of the body elemental. And so all of them are also containing this spinning vortex type of vortexes that meet up with each other, right? So the points meet and then the big sides meet like that. And my question is, I have to formulate a good question. It has to be more like a yes or no question. What's the best way for divinity to integrate in each of the points where diversification emerges? Oh, and the answer coming back is that diversification emerges when you jump from one form of the fractal to the next form. So there's like a jump, and it's a little bit like those cymatic experiments, right? Where you put the resonation under the plate with the salt or whatever sand on it, and there's a point where the resonation's just right and you get a pattern. And then if you raise the resonation to the higher level, it goes through chaos, but then another pattern emerges at the next level. So somehow we're dealing with this dynamic right now, which is that there are only certain points where the manifestation, where it goes from one level of manifestation to the next level of manifestation like that. And it's in the chaos area where we don't quite have a form yet. It's in that area that the knowledge gets lost, that the illusion creeps in. The illusion can creep in the in-betweensies. So what that means is that that's also the place for divinity to stabilize. We want divinity to stabilize in the in-between periods, between the actual expressions of form. Looking, asking, being. Being is, source is sending back the message, well, it's always present in all of those. It's present in the gaps, it's present in the manifestations. So my next question back to being is then, how is it that illusion creeps in? And is that even illusion? And, you know, what's the role of illusion? What's the relationship? if being is present in every single part of the system, then what is the relationship between being and the illusion? Because, or that non-self, that sense of being separate, the sense of being separation, what is that relationship? Because it's the separation which appears from our perception to be responsible for illness and responsible for the building of the form to be imperfect. Again, I'm being shown the stretching and the closing, the Dumru. I'm being shown the Dumru again, that it's like a wave. A wave goes back and forth between the heart of the mother of creation and our existence. And okay, more information is coming. And it's like the mother of the universe is saying, the thing is, I adore you so much. And the form of being in the human body with the limitations of the human nervous system, limitations of human senses, is always going to be looking at my love and my manifestation in some compartmentalized way. Always, always, always. And so it's not an easy thing as a human to fully embrace the degree to which we are loved. Okay, we can accept that, especially if we're suffering, not feeling as loved. There's pain, right? So, so the back and forth is a kind of a massaging, like the breath, of the relationship between this unbounded, complete dedication of wholeness into its own structure and nature, and then all the diversified forms of it out in the relative. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, but Ma, how do we get rid of the suffering? How can we make that cycle complete with, as humans, because we're smart, we have intention. We talked about this yesterday. We're all over here going like, we're just doing the best we can. So like, we're literally doing our best. Why also the suffering? There is a gem. I am seeing it. I am seeing it. I am seeing it. It's very abstract right now, but it's rising to the surface. It essentially has to do with yagya, but it has to do with the way in which we perform action. And it's an integration of Dharma, the 4 pillars of Dharma, and Dharma in its wholeness, into those gap areas. Okay, well, that's easy, right? We can totally do that. So can we put the Dharma matrix, which is like a fractal in form of Dharma, right? You can go to my website and look under the knowledge base under Dharma to see an MC Escher drawing that's very, very similar in structure to the Dharma matrix. So that can go into the areas, the gappy areas between the manifested forms. And that's happening for everyone. And I'm just checking out into our field. That's happening for everyone. And I'm checking and I'm checking and I'm checking. Everyone, everyone, everyone. I am also seeing a little bit of a line. I say seeing, but I'm feeling a little bit of a line of connection from the heart down to the solar plexus and then down below the solar plexus into the 2nd chakra. So I'm seeing a line of energy right there. And I think that's a spot. The reason that's lighting up is that's a spot in our physical bodies where we've been, where the layers of disbelief, the layers of feeling like, no, I'm not divinity, I'm just something pathetic, that's been gotten stuck in the system. So they're gently, gently attending, gently supporting that area also to receive this Dharma matrix. And as I'm seeing that, I'm seeing it running down the body and stabilizing in the pelvis as well. And it's beautiful to have that kind of 4-fold structure that's very, very stable right there in the foundation of the physical body. This is going to be great for anybody who's got structural anomalies in their physiology. any kind of weakness in the muscles, the connective tissue, or the bones, or any kind of inflammation or imbalance, pitta-like imbalances in the joints, anybody who's got that issue going on, this is good for you. Of course, it's good for all of us on many levels, but that's the first application that I'm seeing. Beautiful. The other thing I'm seeing happening is it appears to be a sort of open flow or an open shot. I almost want to use the word shot of a flow through the entire heart chakra, just the heart chakra area, not the heart mahamara, the chakra. And this flow it's like a cord of creation that connects directly to the heart of the mother of the universe. And so that's also establishing. And even though it's a kind of a mobile form, it has a stability in it as well. Maybe what I'm seeing is that it's able to be stabilized, founded on that Dharma matrix that we have going in the lower part of the body. That creates a foundation. And then that allows for this flow of continuous communication, you could say, with Mother Divine, with the source of creation, through the heart area. And it's very innocent. There's a lot of innocence in it. And I feel as if the heart area is washing with innocence. So innocence like a light medicine, innocence manifesting as the flow from Mother Divine comes through the causal level of the physiology, the finest level of feeling, produces a feeling of innocence, which is washing. It's washing. And it's interesting that it's innocence. Like, I couldn't have predicted this, you guys. Oh, you're so amazing. Because what is it that makes us as individuals useful to divinity? Why is it useful to have a nervous system like this that doesn't see wholeness, that experiences one moment after another? Well, it's actually one of the great beautiful aspects of humanity is this innocence that then sets us up. It acts as a foundation for us to experience expansion of consciousness, right? You go to school all innocent, and then you learn new things, and then you take it home to your mother, and it's like, I learned A, So the innocence is what is exquisite about human nature, which allows human nature to be that instrument of divinity that supports the expansion of consciousness universally. Our experience of expansion of consciousness is expressed throughout the whole universe. It's an expanding universe. And we're holding that key in our beings. So the innocence is beautiful. So the question is, the innocence is important, but also the part where the consciousness expands is also important. And how can the expansion happen without a loss of the inherent innocence? Maybe the word innocence isn't quite the right word. That's what I'm suspecting. Because innocence kind of implies being naive. And I don't think that in the end, the expression of full potential isn't really about being naive. It's really about expanding to embrace all knowledge and to completely understand at every level of creation, right? So what I'm doing is I'm modeling for you guys. I'm taking what, to me, the way I understand purity. Oh, I like that. A lady is suggesting purity of being. It's beautiful.
No expectations.
Right? No expectations, which no expectations is actually one of the legs of Dharma, right? Because the leg of austerity is letting go of attachments, letting go of, kind of no expectations, no attachments, no judgments, no assumptions like that. Beautiful. Well put. Yeah, I was offering, you guys are fast. Okay. And just that the being wants to go through the process. We want to, as humans, we want to go through the integrative process of going from that sort of extreme purity, as Our Lady on the internet just mentioned, or that idea of having no expectations, no judgments, no assumptions, no attachments, that state of sort of simplicity. Here's another, just at that moment, the word simplicity. This is from Croatia. Simplicity and natural behavior will bring success. Beautifully put. Yay, Europe. So yes, that there's, I think simplicity is also good. Simplicity also is a little bit, here we are struggling with the English language. You see me struggling with the English here because I'm trying to describe something that's so vast, right? But the simplicity, yes, the simplicity contains, and the purity also. The purity, and remember, purity is one of the legs of Dharma too, right? That's because we've got, just review for everyone, truth, purity, austerity, which means not attachments, and compassion are the 4 legs of Dharma. So that's probably why that Dharma matrix had to come in. Seeing if the Dharma matrix can sit in that area between the heart and the 2nd chakra, that area, or somehow how those 4, we actually did that once. I'm just double checking it, guys, just to make sure everything's stable for everyone. Okay. The simplicity and the purity connect together. They integrate. That's what I was going to say. Integration, very important. It's not one of the 4 legs of Dharma, but it's like an essential tool of energy healing. Integration. And what that does is it brings together the aspect, the qualities of divinity, along with the quality of that type of innocence that we're talking about. It brings them together as a wholeness. Because that's purity is like that innocence, right? Non-expectations is like that innocence. And yet those are also qualities of the divine. And the difference between experiencing it in a kind of like a limited human capacity where we're leaning on our senses, our gross senses of perception, and experiencing it from the side of divine being, is that from the side of divine being, truth, all knowledge is also present. No surprises. It's all there. So we need to go into free from guilt is no pain associated. Ooh, I like that. Free from guilt is no pain free from guilt, question mark. So no pain is associated? Because guilt brings pain. Is that the assumption? Guilt brings pain? It does. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. Guilt, anger, despair, they're all uncomfortable in their own special ways. No, I'm just watching the stabilization here. Looks like the stabilization is occurring. This Dharma thing that we did is moving up. It's moving into the cord of light. Oh, I was wondering when we would circle back to that. So it's moving into the whole cord of light, and it's stabilizing the cord. It has its like smaller vortexes and then its larger ones, and it comes to a point here in the physiology, right, about in the heart Mahamarma area, it all collapses into this beautiful point. So there in the cord of light, feeling the stabilization of those 4 aspects of Dharma. And the I'm looking again at the integration. Integration of truth. We need to look right into that. We need to pull that apart a little bit with the help of our cosmic influences. And because the difference is that the mother of the whole universe, the field of creation, the source of creation, all the truth is completely revealed everywhere all the time. It's not. It's not. It's not revealed. This is the answer coming back. That was a misunderstanding. Oh, So, okay, the wholeness, of the totality of creation, we can think of like the Akashic record. Okay, it's got all the records of everything that's ever happened in its fine detail. Yes, that's true, but the Akashic record sits in a kind of it has its sleeping mode, right? Just like Nirguna Brahm, it has that kind of Nirguna Brahm folded in on its own nature mode until our awareness penetrates in and wakes it up. And when we wake up an aspect, a thread in that great structure, then that aspect of the Akashic record becomes valuable and useful. So it's the same, that the wholeness of creation has its sleeping mode and it has its lively mode. But not every single piece of information is equally lively in every single particle of creation. That's what it is. It's like laws of nature, right? For every law of nature, there's an opposing law of nature, and yet in every relative level of the world manifestation, you've got the pink flower here, but then you've got the green, you've got the green stem right over there. So it means that the pink laws of nature, the laws of nature giving rise to this pink, are less dominant over here where the green stem is, and vice versa. So the reality is, what is responsible for certain laws of nature dominating a little more in some areas and less in others is the application of awareness or attention through the vehicles, through our vehicles, through us, through the points of contact with the universe, where being, divinity, contacts its own nature. So yes, but that still didn't answer my question. My question is truth. We have truth. And where do we cut? Where do we slice? Where does the surgeon's knife come in and slice between truth as it's experienced from the level of divine being, wholeness, and truth as it's experienced in us, in our individualities, our physiologies, as expressions of divine being? Because that is key to the activation of the other three legs of Dharma. And it is our awareness on this is caught in the vortex, and it's spinning out to infinity. And it's very interesting that infinity is appreciating the collective of our group offering such a question into the field. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's having an intense tickling effect on the entire field of creation. And it seems to be activating the gap or the point between understanding as wholeness and understanding as individuality through the whole field of life. It's very interesting. We did that, you guys. Oh, we were kind of like, we're using our ability, our consciousness, to affect transformation in the collective field of the creation. That's really luscious. And what's rebounding from the collective field of creation is an incredible wave of strength coming right into the solar plexus. This is stability like this. We had that Dharma matrix earlier in our session to kind of create some, this is like stability like nobody's business. This is like serious stability. This is a kind of a strength, like very powerful strength. It is that gift from the deep miners, the Saturn and K2, Saturn's so stable, right? Saturn's coming forward with this blessing of stability that's coming right into the body. And I'm just asking being to please clarify so that I can give you guys the best verbal description possible. Thank you. I'm looking at it. It, again, has a fractal in nature. It is connected to, able to come to our collective healing group because of some of the work we've done in the past with the mineralogical intelligence on Earth. So there is definitely a relationship between the stability that's taking place, that's anchoring or establishing in the solar plexus area, with the stability which is inherent in the mineralogical intelligence of Earth. So that's at one end. Ooh, we got some hands up in Canada. So they're sitting on the shield up there, right? The granite shield, is it called? The great granite shield that underlies the entire Canadian, almost all of Canada is sitting on that. Beautiful, fantastic. At the other end, though, I'm kind of fascinated. So you know how fractal is, right? It's got its small parts, and then it's got its big parts, and they're all kind of the same shape, essentially. Okay, so the small parts are connecting into that Davic intelligence of the mineralogical kingdom. But the other end is also very interesting, and I think we should look at it, because this is what we do as humans, is we can look at the whole spectrum. We don't have to get caught in a little piece. So we're looking out at that bigger end of this stability. And when I look at that, okay, when I try to look at the big end, I'm getting a really huge shot of very intense emotions, very intense in a bliss that is so intense. Remember I said the stability here is like, it's like nothing we've ever messed with before. I mean, this is so strong. It's so strong. And when I look at the big end of that spectrum, I'm experiencing that strength as I'm inferring from my experience that what I'm looking at is so big and it's so beautiful that this instrument is having to adapt a little bit in order to accommodate it, because what I experience when I look at it is almost overwhelming amount of the most intense, luscious, beautiful bliss, love that I've ever experienced, which is nice. Those are nice words, but they're not succinct enough for me. So for you, they're not succinct enough for all of us. We need, we're going for that truth, right? Those nuggets of truth, those really deep ones. So I'm going to take another look, going to dive in again. This time I'm looking and I'm saying the reason there's a feeling of overwhelm is because in the collective consciousness of humanity in the last century, we've been referencing this, we're moving up to the big guns, coming up to these questions right here, guys. In the last century, we as a race of beings, human beings, decided to address the malevolent energies that seem to be gripping humanity from a collective level. So we put armies up in front of that darkness. Armies, World War I, Bolshevik Revolution, World War II. So immediately it closed eyes and I'm getting Bolshevik Revolution. And then I'm also getting behind that, further back, there was some kind of Russian Revolution or something. Also, I'm not a historian. Maybe some of you guys are better historians than I am. But something, I think it's pretty well known, the Russian families and all that. And so that's what I'm getting, is that there's the memories, the memory patterns and impressions and discordant feelings that are connected to the pain that's still residing, buried, deep buried. So we're pulling it out from its depths in the collective consciousness of humanity, needs to purify out before we can get to that area where the other side of the fractal is, of the strength that's in the solar plexus. And the strength that's in the solar plexus, and this is, big download coming in. Okay, is that this is how wholeness understands truth. Wholeness understands truth both in an entire spectrum. It understands it from the point value of truth all the way to the totality of truth. And as I mentioned before, humans, we tend to focus in on the point value level of truth. But because it's actually a spectrum, total knowledge, total wisdom is a spectrum from its point expressed value to its complete wholeness, totally abstract, unmanifest quality, less value. Because of that, that's how totality understands truth. And as humans, we can do that too. It's just that we haven't cultured or cultivated ourselves to do that. But we're doing that now. And I think that's why our inquiry created such an incredible tickling in the field of creation, and why it took a few minutes to get the rebound from that. It just came in right now. So that's very cool. And so there's also this element of looking back into the last century. So these are pretty recent ancestors for us, right? This goes back to parents and grandparents and maybe great-grandparents a bit, who lived through that period of human history. And I would say, when I look at it, it really looks to me as if it went back further than that. I see it going back to the 1700s. For example, American Civil War is an example of when a vast number of people gave their lives in order to eliminate a particular type of darkness that had been gripping our country at that time. And it did kind of work. The loss of life was so huge, and it still took hundreds of years to kind of pluck out all the little threads, that little bits and pieces that were connected with that darkness. And we're still plucking, you know, but it looks like it started earlier than just the last century, is what I'm trying to say. Right? And that's been, okay, question is, what about violence against Native people? And boy, that's been going on. I mean, we can go back to Genghis Khan and, you know, all kinds of different times in history where people were just really, it was so hard. Living was so hard. I remember at one point I was watching a history of humanity, which could have been a very uplifting show, not gonna lie, like a multi-session thing. Multiple DVDs or something with my little innocent son. And yeah, we learned about all kinds of, it wasn't that uplifting, just put it that way. We mostly focused on the raids and the violence and the taking over from one bit of land to another and so forth. So yeah, it goes back. It goes back. That's the malevolence going back through time. But the thing is that we've tried to approach it as a collective in different ways, right? Like 2,000 years ago, we would have someone born in this lifetime with a very pure nervous system, our champion. We'll put our champion up in front of the darkness and watch him get crucified. And of course, and it's not saying that those events didn't have some positive impact. They kind of worked. But then, since the time when we were putting martyrs up in front of the darkness, there's still been a lot of violence and negativity and so forth. So the reason I think that came up is what I'm trying to say. The reason I think this flash came up when I tried to get into the bliss that's with the stability that's in the solar plexus is because there are stresses that are still, they're like memory patterns and impressions, and those give rise to assumptions and even expectations and judgments, which then form the foundation for beliefs. And so there's like a whole kind of a mishmash of something there that's in the collective consciousness that we need to address. This starts bringing us into our questions because, oh, look at the time. We're 15 minutes out from the end of our session. I want to be sure to answer questions. So this question comes from Europe, from England. It says, after joyous Easter celebrations, some of his friends who are normally reliably buoyant and contented, and himself as well, have been taken down with the darkest of thoughts and feelings. What's the point? And depression, loneliness, abject apathy, questioning life itself, feeling completely ungrounded and frighteningly mentally unstable. That's not good. So he's saying he woke up in the middle of the night in fetal position, so tightly clenched, the body so tightly clenched up that it was cutting off circulation to the head. And when he uncurled and the blood started flowing, the most unbelievable headache accrued. So that was no good. Yeah, sugar. She's saying maybe sugar. We have some healers here too. Well, of course. Yeah, Easter eggs, right? Right, right. The Easter crash. Yeah. Anyway, they're grown-ups, so I'm hoping they were careful with their diet. But anyway, we'll see. Maybe the absence of light itself is a symptom of the planetary evolution, and perhaps we could start there. The reason for all the stability that's coming into the body and for the healings to stabilize divinity at every single turn, every time there's a diversification and a denser level of manifestation occurs, that the divinity is integrated. So integration, going into all the points of contact in the manifesting process. The reason for this is so that we, not as a blind army, but as a fully awake army, as an army of all champions, grounded in being, which is bigger than any darkness, then we address the malevolence. We address it once and for all, so to say. And part of that story, I feel, is revealed in today's session, in that we were looking into that very abstractly, very closely into that relationship between wholeness and individuality. Because all that illusion and malevolence, all that darkness is born in that gap between those two strokes of self, you could say. And what we understood from that was that the nature of human experience, the nature of human beings, is to anchor or hold tight the side of the spectrum of truth. Well, okay, I'm having a disagreement with being. Excuse me one moment. The story coming back is the story coming back, which is why I'm glad that I've learned to spar. But the story coming back is, well, the nature of humans, what we've been doing all this time is we've been anchoring or holding down that really point value side of truth, and like modern science and modern medicine and all the philosophies and all the going in and looking at the details and the points and the points and the points of truth. Whereas wholeness is on that other side of the spectrum, just holding the totality of truth. But my disagreement with being is, yes, but the potential of our nervous systems is to become so stable and so flexible, hence the stability in these solar plexus, so stable and so flexible that we can also embrace the entire range of truth, as does totality. And we can still be useful instruments to the divine. We can still come out and we can say, this little piece of truth goes to this, the knee bones connect to the ankle bones connected to the foot bone. We can still do that. We can still do that. But as we're doing that, we are not losing the whole body. The knee bone and the whole body is connected to the ankle bone and the whole body, like that. It's connected to the foot bone and the whole body. So, right, we can do it. We can do it because we're not dumb, and we've been doing this for a really long time, and we have this energy healing ability. We're used to leveraging the potential of our energy healing to bring in exactly, to focus our attention on exactly what needs to be focused in order to produce that effect. Like, what's the effect? So the effect that we're dealing with in today's session is the stroke of manifestation from the source of creation to the relative, and that what can be done in that so that corruption doesn't creep in. That's essentially it. And a question is arising. Oh, by the way, I think we won that argument. Divinity won through us, right? Something like that. Anyway, but the question is, in this reality, there has been corruption. There has been corruption. I don't need to point fingers because it doesn't take, we don't have to look very far to find that. And so, doesn't that mean that the corruption has a value? That it's like a, I'm getting back that it's kind of like a placeholder. That when something manifests and a little bit of Maya creeps into the manifesting process, and so the end result isn't completely perfect, that's basically a placeholder that is a seat of potential for being. Because what that means, what that tells the universe is the existence of that corrupt structure tells the universe, oh, here's a spot where some bliss can come in. This is a spot where divine being can manifest. More completely, more thoroughly, where there's a process. We can go through a process and we can experience an unfoldment. So, okay, that's nice. I mean, I could come back with more rebuttals, but now we're looking at about 11 minutes and I still have a bunch of questions. So let me go to more questions. And that kind of, in a way, that leaves us some more to look at in future webinars, right? So this lady's asking a question about China and the US, the relationship between China and the US. Now, I have to confess, I work a lot of hours every day. And so I don't, I'm not up on the news that much. So I'm not exactly sure what's happening with the China and the US exactly, but I do know that we are all part of the same family of humanity. And what I'm thinking is, as I ask the question, I feel awareness of our entire collective tighten up and turn toward China. I feel as if at this point of fullness of the work that we've been doing today and last night, this is a beautiful time to send a wave of deepest reverence, gratitude, and love to the Chinese people. And as that's happening, what I'm seeing is it's particularly orienting toward the, I'd say like toward the masses, so to say, right? Because there are a lot of, there are those in China who are doing very, very well, comfortable, but that's quite the minority. And the majority are people who are struggling on a day-to-day basis. I do know that China's got, they're using the internet in a really interesting way. They've got lots of firewalls up so that they're not so connected with the rest of the world, but at the same time, they're using it to monitor their citizens quite heavily. And everybody's not only monitored, they know they're monitored and they're rated by their neighbors, right? So their neighbors are the ones who give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and their family. And it's, I would imagine that type of living under that type of pressure on a day-to-day basis has got to be incredibly stressful. I would just imagine, like every little thing you say and do, somebody's listening and they're going to give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then your rating goes to the government. So what our collective is able to do at this point is to yoke or integrate compassion with truth. We can bring it, because we got the Dharma stabilized, right? So compassion and truth, those two pillars of Dharma together, are able to, and it looks like our collective, y'all, brilliant y'all, are bringing together all four legs of Dharma in an integrated wholeness. And the truth is definitely dominant. It's like the truth takes up like 3/4 of this mix that's created on the level of consciousness by our collective. And what it's doing is lovingly offered at the seat or the core of the Chinese consciousness, the consciousness of the Chinese people, and Tibetan people. I still think of the Tibetan people as different from the Chinese people, but that whole field, and I'm just kind of feeling it gently, gently. We are powerful. They're powerful. So we're just supporting on all. It's a very innocent, sweet, no strings attached, no expectations, no judgments, no assumptions, none of that, just no attachments, just offering that love into that field. And of course, ancient culture, right? So it goes through time. It goes through time. We were even mentioning Genghis Khan earlier, weren't we? Who went through and what I'm feeling is a purification is occurring, a big, big relief, a big release of discordant feelings, pressure. Feels like pressure is releasing. It's like we've opened up a little pressure valve that allows the pressure to release in a very graceful and gentle and compassionate manner. So that's what's happening is very interesting. We are gaining support from looks like Earth's intelligence as well. So there's what's happening is it looks like gatekeepers. There's this little pressure valve, which was unknown previously until we did this healing. So that was one of those deep-seated gifts, right? And so the point where the pressure can be gently released, gracefully released, without causing any harm, is now like a little doorway or a little portal that's got a kind of a support system on either side of it. It's like guardians, like that. There's a sense of holding that sacred space of that doorway as long as it can comfortably hold without hurting anybody, without offending anybody, as long as it can, to start to release the pressure and just release it gently, 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 gently. And that's going to go on as long as that needs to go on until some relief is experienced by the entire collective of China's people. Thank you for that cool question. I wasn't even sure I was going to look at it today because it seemed a little bit different from some of the others, but I'm glad we did. Here's one anonymous attendee said, and of course this was back earlier, we are not allowing in capital letters. I think I know who you are. That simultaneous point and wholeness, how to help us let go. We are not allowing, it's true, you know, if we're not getting the wholeness and the point at the same time. So deepest gratitude to everyone for the profound and amazing and astounding work that we did today. Completely, it blows my mind every time because I don't plan it and you guys do it. Oh, is this one lady saying she was just literally in tears while we were doing our healings? I would be, but I'm on camera, so I can't. Oh, look, three other people raising their hands at the same time. Yeah, right? And now two more people. And now another person. So thank you all so much for being with me. It's beautiful. It's been beautiful and amazing. We will do it again in 3 weeks. And I look forward to seeing you all at that time and wishing you all a beautiful period in the next 3 weeks. Saturn and K2 go out of 100% affliction, I think on May 1st. I think it's May 1st or 2nd, right around there. So then they go into 1 degree of each other for a while. So we're gonna have fun with them this summer. Okay, thank you all. Bye.